Hey everyone, Jim T. Graham with RCGroups.com. Never said it like that, have I, Jason?
What?
I'm changing it up. We'll look at Jason's shirt in just a minute. With me.
Whoa, there it is. Okay.
What was that?
That was me getting the live feed going so I can see the chat.
Gotcha.
And it was you saying the same thing you just said.
So before we focus on Jason's shirt, I want to introduce Bryce Custer. Bryce, what's happening?
Just enjoying the day, hanging out with Jim T.
So Bryce Custer, and you may have read about him in some of my magazine articles or heard about him on the podcast. Bryce is the actual guy responsible for teaching me how to fly RC. So many years ago when my kids were literally in baby seats. Remember that, Bryce?
Yes. I thought you'd stolen your firstborn. You looked like you were holding her for ransom. That's the funniest thing I've ever seen. It's like, this dude cannot be a father.
And I was a hippie who wanted to fly RC, which didn't jive.
Yeah, none of it added up.
You thought I came to the field to possibly sell the baby.
Yeah, exactly. I thought you were holding it for ransom.
And then, Bryce, I don't know if I have it on me right now, but did you notice my bandana I had in my pocket today?
Yes, I did.
Reminiscent of your red shopper rag that you wore back in those days. Right?
I know. Yeah. And very fashion statement. Fashion forward individuals we are.
I have to think. In fact, I wonder where my rag went. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
Bingo. I use this for a lot of stuff. Sometimes I put it on my head when I'm sweating, eyes, all kinds of stuff, or sweat. I have to think you carried that red rag around because of glow fuel.
It's a very manly accessory. Yes.
Come on. It had to be glow fuel, though.
Glow fuel. Oh, yeah. Blow your nose in it, whatever you needed to do.
So the airplane that you flew that probably inspired me the most was a 72-inch Booker.
Yeah. It was 72-inch. It was the old Pica PICA kit. Had a YS91 on it. We flew the crap out of that thing.
Over and over. And then I love just watching you right before you have to stop flying at 3 in our field. Yeah. And you would just shoot touch and goes over and over. And I'd be like, one day, maybe I can shoot touch and goes like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was something else.
Well, we'll talk about history more in a second, but now I'd like to focus on Jason and his shirt. Jason told me you were hosting a party and you were going to show a movie that many teenagers that had not seen. And I said, what are you 3D printing? And then the following Saturday, I got a text message with this on it.
Yes. I was like, so Nikolai had sent me some Thingiverse STL files. And so I was like, I've got to make the chest burster. So I didn't have it on. And we watched the first movie, obviously, after that scene. The movie's over. I go downstairs during intermission, throw this on, come back up, start convulsing on the floor, spin around, and then this thing's coming out of my chest. So
I gotta
kick out of that.
I gotta say one thing. That ain't right.
It's kind of reminiscent of some other things that we, family friendly show. We're gonna keep it that way, but yeah, this is like a one-time use deal.
Now we had your beautiful wife on the show last week. What did she say when she saw this thing?
So, well, everybody they laugh like, "Ha, that's a total Jason thing to do," and then they're like, "That looks like a beep," and then we're moving on.
Oh my Lord! This show, I'll tell you a backstory, Bryce. Right before Halloween, I was showing off costumes I was going to buy for Halloween on Amazon, right? And so I was on Amazon looking for the costume. And it was a blow-up horse, and my legs were the front legs of the horse, and I was a small cowboy on the bronc. And so I was looking for a picture on Amazon, and then I was like, "There's another one, and I don't understand." And I clicked on it, and then Matt Gunn realized what we were looking at first. It was a giant man holding a smaller man, and they both were naked. And then they had all the proper parts, and it was on the screen, and I couldn't make it. And the more I tried to make it get off the screen, the more it zoomed in on the wrong place. I had to go back in and edit out. It was not appropriate. This is not as bad as that. This is only reminiscent.
I mean, it's got the. Let me get close up. Probably HD, but it's got like the teeth, and it's got some good details in the print that you can't probably see too well. And I just took some red Sharpie and made some blood for it, so it went over well. We had a good time.
My cheeks are hurting from trying not to talk. Hey, Daniel Haynes, thank you for joining us on the live cast. Hey, Cy Jones. I love that name, by the way. Hey, Nick Olai, what's happening? And RCGroups Videos is here. So nice of them to join us.
Well, hey, how about that?
I was just having lunch with Brycey. Now, once again, Bryce and I go way back. We've been hosting the Profile Brotherhood Nash Pro event for 15 years. Did you know it's been 15 years?
It's been a long time.
Dang, that's awesome.
I remember when we were trying to debate if it was 10, and that seemed like a year ago. So a day seems like a month, and a month seems like 6 months, and a year seems more like a month. And so today is more like a week.
We're turning into dogs, aren't we?
That's actually sort of from The Jerk, the movie. If you haven't rewatched it, I advise you to go do it. But what the hell's my point here? Oh, so Bryce and I went out to eat lunch and catch up, and I was telling him about all the interesting things about Nash Pro, like their Gordo, an OG, an original gangster from Nash Pro, has created a thread called the OG Reunion, where he's enticing old original Pro Bros to come to the event. And then I have a very special event that I can't talk about. It's not that event. It's a different one I can't talk about, that the bros don't know what I'm doing. If you're a Pro Bro and you're watching this, we're going to do a thing, hopefully Thursday, Friday, Saturday, after the noontime mass hover. And I'm debating on whether I should tell them what it is or not. But wow, out of nowhere comes my dog.
Oh,
Nelly, come here. Come here. I'm afraid.
Got her head stuck in a cone.
She's picking up 57 channels and there's nothing on. I worked on that video. Hey, by the way, Jason, as you may or may not know, on Saturday, the wife of I just completely shifted gears here. The wife of Tail Dragger RC, Natasha, came to Nashville, and a lady from Canada. And they both are hippie chic t-shirt makers who have websites. And they said, Jim, would you drive us around Nashville and take pictures of us while we pose in our hippie chic clothing? Yeah.
How did that go?
It went great. Now, it wasn't as hot as you would think, and the excursion proved itself worthy. There were 5 people doing this. I only thought there'd be 2 with me. And so, oh my God, I completely forgot what the point was here. The dog reminded me of something. But we drove around Nashville, and we went down and took pictures everywhere. Holy crap, I've completely lost my thread.
Was it 50 channels? Something about
57 channels, and there's nothing on.
Yeah.
It'll come to me. Anyway, we did do that, and it was great hanging out with Natasha. And I need to catch up with Chad, much like Mr. Bryce here. So here's the plan, guys. We're going to talk to Bryce about some things. We're going to tell a story about a guy in Alaska. I have a Mexico story if we need it. And then Jason is going to tell us what it takes to get ready to compete. Now, NATS doesn't stand for national, right?
It's the National Aero Modeling Championships. I don't know.
NAC.
NAT stands for nationals, I guess.
Then why am I capitalizing NATS, I wonder?
I don't know. Just the NATS.
I need to go verify that.
The NATS.
But you're getting ready for that. You're leaving in the morning, you said?
I'm heading out first thing in the morning. There's people
What time?
right now flying cross country.
What time are you leaving in the morning?
As soon as I get up, 6 o'clock, 6:30.
I know that Muncie isn't close like Champaign, so it's probably 8 hours away.
No, it's only like 5 something, I think.
Ooh,
A little over 5, maybe.
awesome.
Yeah, dude, I'm pumped. Are we on that now?
Are we on it?
You want me to talk about that right now?
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah. And then we'll go to Bryce. Bryce, are you in a time frame?
No.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about that right now.
Cool. So I've been to the Nats before, but just for DLGs for the F3K portion. And that was a total blast. And all the guys there were telling me, you have to come and stay for the entire week, fly the rest of the competitions. It's called Glider Camp. It's the most fun you'll ever have. And I'm like, it sounds amazing. I don't have any big airplanes. I have to get home. So I left and wanted to come ever since. Last year, we didn't get to go. So this year, I got a couple airplanes, thanks to Scott Shaw. And I'm doing the whole week. So I'm heading out tomorrow. We'll get up there, get my camping stuff situated. We'll get some practice flying in. Hopefully the weather's not looking too great for this weekend. But Saturday and Sundays, the F3K, the DLG portion of the competition. Then Monday and Tuesday, I'll be kind of working like normal from my laptop, I'll be posting some photos and event coverage from the F3K stuff. And then I'm going to go around to some of the other events, kind of get the lowdown, take some pictures, and post some of that content up as well. And then I have big gliders, and that's later in the week. That's Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday and Saturday. And there's 2 different competitions with the same airplanes. The first one I'm okay with. It's the Unlimited, and it's basically what I did last month in St. Louis. It's a thermal duration contest. You winch launch, you go up, the timer starts as soon as you're off the winch. You have to fly for 10 minutes exactly, land on the money with a spot landing, and points are accrued based on how close you are to the center of the pin of the landing tape. That's great. I've done that before. What I'm not done before is what they call F3J. This is a team-based competition, which I'm not really sure how that works as a team, other than they're going to help us launch and
the J means you have to jump. So you probably have to fly that right underneath you and jump in the air. That would be awesome.
But so I got this email, and he was like, this is the most fun you'll ever have at a soaring competition, flying this J format. And they started telling me, like, check your airplanes for loose control surfaces and slop, and tighten all that stuff up because flutter is your enemy. And I haven't seen one of these launches yet, but a J launch is very different from a standard winch launch. It's a different type of line. They call it monoline, and they have gloves on, and they hold the plane, and they kind of like act like they're going to be pulling up against like 300 mile per hour wind. And they get the plane ready, they mash the pedal, and they build up just tension, and then they release the plane, and it's supposed to go like a rocket. Super stressful on the airframe. You go up in like 1 second, and then you dive down and then yank it and do this zoom, and it all happens within a couple seconds. And the reason for that is the timer starts on the buzzer. So the more time you're on the line, the less score you're able to get, and you're trying to get the most amount of points. So you want to get off the line as soon as possible and get as high as you can to be able to go find thermals. But you'll explode airplanes like nobody's business. And I have some older airplanes, and these were actually John, how do you say his name? From used to be Horizon, Diniz.
Oh, John Denise.
Denise, yeah. So these were his airplanes, and he says he's put them through many a J launch before, so that's encouraging.
Wait, you got John's planes? How did that happen?
These are John's planes. So Scott bought them from John. I don't know how long ago, and Scott flew them for a long time and had them as backup planes, and now they've been passed on to me.
We sure miss John. Where'd that transmitter go? You had
Yeah, John's a good dude.
So John was always the transmitter guy for me at Horizon. And so one of the reasons Bryce showed up today, we were eating lunch, and he said, you got that IX-12? I'd like to get my hands on it. So this would have been something John would have helped us.
There you go. So yeah, they've been passed on to me, which is kind of neat little piece of RC history, flying these airplanes. But I'm super excited. The weather looks like we might get some rain. So what I ended up doing was buying a larger, more fully enclosed hammock shelter, as like a rain fly tarp thing. So it's got doors, but it fully encloses my hammock. So I'm going to be between 2 trees in a hammock in this giant tent thing. It should be quite cozy, actually. I'm kind of excited to use it. But we'll stay dry, hopefully, and camp out. The weather looks really nice temperature-wise. It's not going to be brutally Muncie hot. We're going to be in like the low to mid 80s and then mid 60s at night. So beautiful camping temperature. And
I was going to say, I had a sponsor for this, just in case there's sponsors watching. I had a sponsor for Jason's event coverage. It just fell out this morning. I sobbed for a while, but I'm over it. That's why Bryce said, let me take you to lunch. And I said, boy, I need something. So if you're interested in picking up the event coverage sponsorship of this, and this is right at the top of RCGroups. If you go look at the homepage, shoot me an email and I will cut you a sweetheart deal on not only this, but I'll throw in a couple of other things. And I would love to get a sponsor. Actually, I have a couple of emails out, Jason. I have a phone call I'm going to make as well. Werner Muir, FPV Peru, is online.
Who's Team America?
Yeah, who is Team America?
I want to know who that is.
It sounds like, well, there's some sort of an icon there, but that looks more like a camera and a wing or
I can't tell. But they are saying, yeah, so the NATS is just short for the Nationals. It's just, it's not an acronym, it's just an abbreviation.
Maybe I'll change it. So what all are you bringing airplane wise? So like when I go to a show and I bring an airplane, I know all this extra stuff. Or if I just go to the field with you and then you say, Jim, do you have pliers? And I never do.
Yeah.
So, but you're going all the way up to compete. So what like is in your toolbox?
Yeah. So I'm prepared to the hilt. I've got 2 DLGs. They're both snipes. I've got 2 unlimited ships, which are the Super Pros. And those are the only airplanes. Now I did bring my Horizon Hobby E-Flight UMX T6 Texan. Not a Texan. What do I have? The AT6. The Ultra Micro just to fly in the evening time, as well as my UMX Radian, just for fun. I have a toolbox, so I've got all my pliers and tools and tape and supplies and extra screws and bolts and nuts, my high start, a hammer, plenty of stakes, lots of waters, chair.
Bringing your fan,
my cooler. I'm bringing a fan in case it gets like a little hot. I've got a USB fan for the hammock.
What kind of charger system do you run?
So I've got my $500 that charging box that I showed you guys, that portable battery.
All right.
So I'm bringing that with a couple of ISDT chargers and my little Aokoa. It's AOKO, I think. Aokoa 1S charger for all of my DLG batteries to charge up during the competition. And it runs off of a 4-cell 3300 LiPo, which will last the entire trip. So I'm packing light as far as batteries. I just got a few 2S 800s for the big planes, and then I fly 1S 500s for the DLGs. Real easy to charge. I do have better than duct tape. I've got Gorilla Tape. Some crazy strong stuff.
What's that tape that we used to use for hinges? Something Derm. Blenderm. Yeah, now that tape used to always live in my box because you always had to have it for a servo cover or something like that.
Yeah, and most importantly, I'm bringing ballast because it's looking pretty windy Saturday and Sunday, so we're going to have to load them up and fight through it. But, yeah, lots of camping gear.
I see the Ariana Grande has joined us in the live chat. Very nice.
Ariana Grande.
Tom Flight Craze Daniels. Blender, yes. Well, so how long are you going to be gone? I know all these things, but I just want you to say it.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's crazy. I mean, I'm leaving tomorrow, and I won't get back until next Sunday. So I'm staying
all week.
Competing Saturday and Sunday, working Monday, Tuesday, competing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, driving back Sunday. It's a long trip.
I promise not to FaceTime you.
Oh, you can FaceTime me anytime.
Jason, it's like this. I got an idea. Hey, Jason, listen to this idea. So I'll try not to do that while you're in the.
I answer and it's like 10, 9, 8, ready to launch. I can't talk right now.
Live on the. Oh, right. Well, Bryce was telling me about a creative way that he heard about that a guy in Alaska uses to get rid of planes that he doesn't like anymore. And I believe it's going to turn into an event at the Profile Brotherhood show.
Right, let's hear it.
So this comes from Leonard Perry up in Algonquin, I think I said it right, Alaska. And I know Lenny from, we fly the same full-scale plane. And he's actually an old pro bro also. But he was down here earlier this month on some travel, and we connected. And I'm going to try not to bust out laughing because every time I think of this, it just kills me. But anyways, this guy up there, when he gets sick of an airplane, when he's done with it, he doesn't do like most people do and just sell it or trade it off and get what he wants.
Bryce loves it.
It's the funniest damn thing. He'll get a trash can and set it out in the middle of the airfield, and he'll just pile drive thing and try and get it in the trash can.
So we're thinking this is an event for Nash Pro, but we're looking for a name like Bulls can isn't bad.
Yeah, bull can. We just so happened to be while I was trying to tell this story at lunch. The Golf Channel was on, and I thought I came up with hole in one. But it's got to be hard as hell to hit that.
Oh
trash
yeah, I
can.
can imagine.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and you only get one shot with it, you know.
You can FPV it. You can FPV it.
That would be good.
Hit the shit can. Shit can. Shit can.
That's it.
Can I say that more? I like that. And we can paint that on the side. Maybe make a sign. Shit can. Although that's dangerous with pro bros. I've had to clean a few things up that I never thought would happen after.
Oh, that's even better. It gets used as that beforehand.
Oh, God.
Somebody might need to monitor the shit can like after dark, or we hide the thing. Shit can.
I like it.
Shit canned.
Shit canned.
Yeah. So that might be cool.
So Bryce, hey, let me tell you, that microphone you're using is actually belonged to Tony D originally, and he accidentally left it, and it's been the official microphone of Nash Pro for years now.
Nice.
And so that's a little historical thing. But we fly out of this field. We're one of the only people left there that they allow to fly out of this field in Leapers Fork, Tennessee. But Bryce, you fly out of this field. Tell everyone about your full scale airplane.
So it's an Avid Flyer, built back in. It's a home built airplane. Guy built it. I didn't build it. I'm the third lucky owner. Guy built it back in the early '90s. It's a little tail dragger, 2-seat, side-by-side plane, steel tube and fabric. Did I say tail dragger?
Yep.
Takes off
It's red and white.
Takes off from about 300 feet, lands the same.
Do you smoke a cigar every time you fly it?
Oh, man.
Because every time I've seen you in the cockpit, you're smoking a cigar.
Smoking something. Yeah, it's a cigar.
Here's the weird part, or the cool part. The wings fold up, and it's got a trailer hitch on it. So Bryce keeps it in the garage up the hill from this pasture, and then he'll haul it down behind. What do you haul it down behind now? Your Corvette?
No, the RCGroups golf cart.
Oh,
It's
okay.
still being hauled by our beloved golf cart.
It's historically in the field, so it lives at Nash Pro.
Oh yeah, and it shares the field. And I left it out all last month. I've gotten to the point where I'm leaving it out if the weather's nice.
Oh, the airplane, yeah.
With
the '68 Charger, Dukes of Hazzard Charger, and the cop car.
Oh, dude, John Snyder was actually out there at the field looking at the General Lee. I think it was sometime over the weekend because he was doing a concert.
Bo Duke,
yeah,
John Snyder,
the blonde one, right? Yeah. He was doing a concert at the Franklin Theater, and somebody told him about the Dukes of Hazzard car out there, and it's like 7 miles away from. We're about 7 miles outside of Franklin. Google map it.
You might know the Duke's car from me getting arrested. This is the same Dodge Charger I was in when I got arrested.
Fake arrested.
Yeah, fake arrest.
Yes.
I'll tell you a Dukes of Hazzard story. So, of course, I grew up watching Dukes of Hazzard. It was like in its heyday when I was like 11 or 12 or something. And so I spent a lot of those nights for some reason at my grandpa's house. And so my grandpa and I would watch the Dukes of Hazzard together. And every time they made a jump, my grandpa would say, "That's not real." And I'd say, "Grandpa, that is real." And he'd be like, "No." And he would never believe that it was real. And so, I love Daisy Duke, and I love the Duke Boys, and I love Uncle Jesse. Like I love, Mac at Mac Hodges. It's kind of the same type of patriarch type of fella. But one day I was in the front yard. I had a 55 pickup truck, and a car pulled over, and it was Luke Duke. Got out, and he said, "I just pulled over to look at your truck." And I was like, mind blown.
Mm-hmm.
My mind was like this. Sorry, had to get that in there. So now we're looking at the live chat. There's a lot of live chatting going on. More about the shit can.
Move up to the mic. Yeah.
And
Sorry
so
about that.
you fly out of that field, and how far can you fly that red airplane?
So it's got about 2.5 hours fuel on it, which is about an hour and a half more than I can tolerate because I really have to fold up to fit in the airplane. It's not a real big airplane. And if I don't know you before the flight while we're flying, we'll definitely know each other by the end of the flight.
Because it's so close.
Yeah, because it's so close.
Now, does Liz, your wife, go fly around with you?
Yeah. I'm lucky that way because she gets pissed if I don't take her flying.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Does she ever say, "Hey, let's go flying"?
Yeah, she does. Matter of fact, a couple times I've been like, she, for reasons she doesn't understand weather or mechanics or whatever. I'm like, no, we can't go do that, and she'll get bent out of shape.
Let's tell this story. So when I started Billy Hill RC, the company that I started after I left Hobby Lobby, I actually operated. Bryce let me pull the Hell Wagon into their little back area, and so I went in there every day and worked and churned and burned like I do now.
Yeah,
and that is where I met Mike from American Pickers. I have bragged about this more than one man should because it was my favorite show, and I watched it, and then one day he came to the show to hang out with us, and Bryce goes, "Yeah, Mike, he hung out with you before he ever had a TV show," and I had totally forgotten.
Yeah.
So how did you meet Mike?
So Mike, when we first moved out to Leaper Sport, it's a great little place, and on the weekends, it sounds like a race because it's situated down in this valley. There's a couple little state highways that run around in the Natchez Trace, and people are always riding motorcycles out there, getting out of the city and what have you. And they had what the hell do you call it? A poker run for motorcycles, and so we volunteered to help it as part of the community. We were raising money for Toys for Tots or something like that, and so I worked the registration table, and everybody got set up and they took off. And Mike pulls up in this van, not the van that he's in now, but it was an old Chevy van, and he goes, "Hey, I still have time to go on that, get signed up for that poker run." I said, "Yeah, everybody took off about 15, 20 minutes ago, but you should be able to make it." And he goes, "Okay, I'm going to go park over there and get my bike out." And so he goes over there. I didn't, this is the first time I met the dude. And he pulls out, I don't know. It's like, oh, sorry, I know this is a family show. He pulls out like a 20s or 30s Harley or something like that. And it had not had a whole lot of wrenches turned on it over its life. And he finally got it started, and he comes riding over to the booth. And the desk where I'm at, I said, "Are you going to take that to the Murfreesboro?" Because Murfreesboro is about 45 minutes away. Yeah. And he goes, "Oh, yeah. I'm going to do it." And I'm like, "Are you sure, man? You got a cell phone or something with you? Because, you're out in the middle of nowhere." He goes, No, it'll make it. So it's like, all right, whatever. It takes all sorts to make this world go around, right? And so he takes off. I pack up because he was the last one out. And later that evening, it was a Saturday evening, we were watching down at the Lawn Chair Theater, Marlon Brando's The Wild Ones motorcycle movie. And it was about 5 minutes left in the movie, and I hear behind us, and this is out in, this what do you call it, amphitheater or whatever. I hear this right behind me, and I look over at Liz, and I'm like, "Did you just hear that? Somebody ripped the living daylights out of one." And she goes, "Yeah, I did. And about 30 seconds later, I hear it again, and it's like, and Mike is great at ripping farts like that.
Like naturally or fake?
No, they were fake. But
okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like being in 8th grade again, 6th to 8th grade. And so I'm turning around, and I'm like, and I told Liz, I said, "Dude, that is not somebody actually farting. Somebody's just back there having fun." And it happened again, and you could hear him start cutting up and laughing. So the movie's over, and I stand up, and I'm like, whoever that is, I got to go meet him. Because, anybody that's willing to do some sort of something like that out in public, you just got to, they're my kind of people, right? And sure enough, it was Mike. And I'm like, "Dude, you actually made it there and back on your bike?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah. I stopped and, I don't know, put air in the tires because they kept getting out." And no telling what kind of stuff he had to work on the bike, but he ended up making it back. So we just hit it off at that point. It at that point in his life, he was just traveling around doing his picking thing, what you see on the TV show.
But he was pitching the show.
He wasn't even pitching the show at that point.
Okay.
I don't think I think at that point we didn't even have iPhones. And so he was, there was an antique store. There still is there in our little village.
Yeah.
And he would trade with Marty at that store. And so whenever he'd come to town after that, he'd just stay with us at the house. And one day he shows up and he had, I think he'd gotten, shit, I can't remember. He had an iPad. That's when the iPads had just come out, and he got a new video camera. And the digital cameras had just become, they were under $1,000 at that point. And he was filming all this stuff. And he goes, I'm going to make a reality TV show about what I do. And so we were like, oh yeah, okay, whatever, Mike. That sounds good.
I'm going to stop you there.
Yeah.
Jason, I need you to remember Roy Orbison. Okay.
Got it.
And then I'm going to go back and say it was somewhere in this area where I'm having beer with Mike in the Hell Wagon, and we're having a lengthy conversation, and he's telling me about this TV show. And I've been in the film industry and TV industry a long time before that. And I remember thinking, good luck, buddy. Mm-hmm. And then I guarantee it wasn't easy. And he went out there and made that happen.
No, yeah. Matter of fact, he got turned down so many times. And then I think he put it on hold for like 3 years. And when History Channel got a new CEO, is the female, she went back through and she, of all the shows that they'd turned down, they were looking at, I think his agent wasn't even pitching the show at that point. And they wanted to see it. And sure enough, man, they called him back and he was like, yeah, let's go for it.
Fast forward to now, I have in the last year or two been driving down Old Hickory, and I don't think anyone else would know who it was, but I will see Mike and a little shorty helmet with sunglasses riding a low handlebar Norton, grinning.
Oh yeah.
Coming up the road, the 2-lane road, the other way. And I'm like, there goes Mike.
Yep.
Pretty cool.
That's him. Cool. What you see is what you get on the show, man. He's just a salt of the earth kind of guy and loves what he does. And I mean, it's a cool story after that. He was single at the time, but he's since gotten married to his longtime sweetheart.
And they've got have a child.
They got a little one. And it's cool to watch the success and knowing that he persevered through all that and he's having fun with it.
He's a very nice, famous guy. He can't walk 4 feet, and this is Leaper's Fork. This is a 1-horse town. He can't walk 4 feet without having to say hello.
Oh yeah, I love him, but it's kind of a pain in the ass to do anything with him.
It takes an hour.
Yeah. Going to get gas is an hour and a half event where it'd take the rest of us 5 minutes.
And that he's come down to Nash Pro, and we've got him in goggles before. And I have a picture. There might be a video of Bryce and Mike is like grinning and people are giving the rock and roll sign. So now it brings us, we're going to come back to RC here. And Bryce used to work at Hobby Lobby. This predates Jason and I. Bryce was on the sales counter at Hobby Lobby. I'm sure you did more than that, right?
Yeah. Everybody kind of did it all back then.
Shipping and that.
Back in the 80s.
The story I want you to tell, and I'm sure you've got more than a few from Hobby Lobby, but I want you to tell everyone that, by the way, within the advent of YouTube and television, every story you probably, like if I say, did you see that? She will say yes before I finish because everyone's seeing the same content. Here's a story I've never heard before, since or after, and it was Bryce's story. So tell them about the last thing Roy Orbison ever did.
The last thing he ever did was he went in Hobby Lobby, and this would have been like 87, 86 or 87. I don't know. You have to check that.
And he parked his truck. He was driving
he had parked his truck. He had this old, it was like a 40s or 50s truck. And again, it's something like Mike Wolf would totally love, but it had not been shown a lot of mechanical love to it. And matter of fact, Hobby Lobby used to be, it was situated on the side of the hill. You remember how up at the counter, Jason, that public or the city parking was all on that hill. And so Roy's truck, it was the only truck there, only vehicle when I was pulling up, because I was coming in there after school. It was like 3:00 in the afternoon. And it was pointed downhill. It wasn't sitting in one of the parking spots, and it had a old concrete cinder block sitting in front of one of the tires. And so anyways, I went up to the front counter clocked in down at the basement, went up there, and there stood at the counter this dude, and he was pale as a ghost. He had no skin color to him whatsoever, but he had this jet black hair. I mean, like as dark as Jim's shirt. And he had these glasses on, and he had his hair back, pulled back, but he had these glasses on there. I mean, they were so damn thick, you could see into next week if we put them on. And I asked the dude, and I remember I'd been living in Nashville for about a month at the time, and I walked up to him and I was like, damn, he looks kind of familiar. I met him somewhere, but I can't quite place his name. And so I asked him, I said, has anybody helped you? And he said, I had the smoothest voice I've ever heard.
No, son.
Yeah. I said, has anybody helped you? And he said, son, he said, yeah, you're Tom Lewis Tom's got my order. And I said, okay. And so I sat there and I'm looking at him and I'm like, damn, I should know this guy's name, because I felt really bad. My folks taught me always to remember somebody's name, and I could not remember his name. And I knew I'd met him somewhere. I was trying to figure out what airfield I'd met him at. So anyways, I went back to the warehouse trying to hunt down Tom, because it seemed like it's taking him forever. It was. And he was putting together this huge order.
Like $1,800.
Yeah, exactly. And I asked him, I said, hey, who's that dude up front? I said, I know I met him before. And Tom, he was smoking a cigarette. This is back when you could smoke in buildings. He stopped and he thought about it, and he thought about, oh yeah, I'd only been here a month. And this is something that happens in Nashville. We see, famous celebrities all the time. And he goes, oh yeah. He goes, you know that guy. Why don't you just think about it and you'll figure out who it is? I'm like, okay. So I go back up there. I'm like, I'm a 17-year-old kid talking to this dude. I'm asking him what he's flying, what his interests are. Do you fly scale? You fly pattern? What do you do? Because I'm trying to figure out who this dude is. And so finally Tom comes up to the counter from the warehouse with this huge order. I mean, I'd never seen this much stuff before. One dude buy this much stuff. And I said, I'm looking at Tom and he's looking at me, and he goes, so did you figure out who this is? And I was just like, oh, shit, man, I couldn't believe he called me out like that. And I looked up at Roy and I said, sir, I'm so sorry. I said, I know I've met you at one of these fields. I said, but I can't remember your name. And he kind of grinned. He goes like that. And he goes, I'm Roy Orbison. Stuck his hand out to shake my hand. And said, Roy, sorry, man. Yeah, I'm not remembering.
I'm
not remembering you, Roy. Where did we meet? And Tom goes, no, this is Roy Orbison.
Roy
Orbison. No, still not getting it.
Kids.
And Tom goes, pretty woman. And he starts singing it. And you could have pushed me over with a feather at that point. And, Marseille, yeah. So anyways, then he proceeds to ring this stuff up. And it was like $1,800. And this was back in the 80s.
Right.
He pulls out a wad of $100 bills out of some jeans, and he's wearing blue jeans and a blue jean jacket and a white t-shirt. And it looked like somebody had been taking shotgun practice, shooting target practice on.
Nice.
I mean, there was so much ventilation. This was back before you could, buy clothes.
Right. You had to wear them that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Wear them in.
So, anyways, he pulls out all his money and sets it down there, and then he goes. He gets ready, and I said, "Hey," and I think this was when the traveling Woolberries were getting big.
Nice.
And I said, "Hey, my dad grew up listening to your music, and would you mind giving me an autograph for him?" And Roy stops. It was kind of odd. There's a back end to this. He goes, and he looks around the room like he's getting ready to do some sort of shady deal. He thinks about it, and he goes, "Okay. So what's your dad's name?" So you're right. Dwight, thanks for enjoying my music. Your friend, Roy Orbison. Folds it up, gives it to me. And I'm like, thanks, man. And then I realize he's got this pile of stuff, and he grabs it and he starts heading out to his vehicle. And I'm like, hey, you want some help with that? He says, sure. So I grab some stuff and I start walking out. I go out that front door, and I'm the first one out, and I see that old dumpy ass pickup truck sitting across the parking lot, and I'm like, oh, that cannot be his vehicle. This is Roy Orbison's truck, right? Or I mean, this is Roy Orbison. Surely he's got like a chauffeur with a limousine that's going to be coming down the road. Don't walk towards the shitty parking, shitty
Don't
truck,
assume,
right? Yeah. So I just let him go, and he starts walking towards that truck. And sure enough, he walks over to it, and he goes, "Now you got to be real careful where you place this stuff because it's got a lot of ventilation holes in the thing. The bed was pretty; it had some rusty spots in it. You could see the road underneath it. So we made a couple trips like that, loading it up, and I started heading back in. I said, "Thank you," and he goes, "Oh, hey, hold on real quick." And he gets in the truck. He goes, "You grab my parking brake for me?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "The parking brake." And he's pointing to the cinder block that was sitting in front of the wheel. And I was like, "Oh, yeah. So, and you could see in the bed of the truck where he'd put it because it'd been dancing around in there and worn out a spot, right?"
That's awesome.
So, anyways, he starts down the hill. And that's when I realized why the truck was parked right there. Because you hear it roll about 15 feet and then
Pops the clutch.
Yeah, the starter was shot on the thing. So he goes down to the bottom of the hill, turns around, comes back up. I wave goodbye to him. The next morning, get up and hear Roy Orbison died. So he left there, goes over to his, I think, mother-in-law's house. She was fixing dinner. He said he was tired. He was going to get a quick nap, laid down on the couch, and never woke up.
Wow.
So that's the last autograph ever signed.
That's the
Maybe your dad still has it.
Oh, Dad does. Yeah.
Oh, I thought that you lost it.
No, he's got it. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, very cool dude. Nothing pretentious about him. Just the salt of the earth.
This might be the first time this is on a podcast.
Yeah. So it was a true pleasure getting to meet him.
Very awesome.
Yeah.
So I have a crash story. This is the one and only time I can ever remember being really, really, really mad at Bryce Custer. Bryce had the Booker, and it was like, whoa, that kind of an airplane. And a Booker came up for sale. The pictures are still floating around on the internet.
Goldberg Booker.
Yeah, it was
with the Sato 150.
Golden Knight. Even better, I was like, a Golden Knight. I've always wanted it. And it's a 4-stroke. I always wanted a 4-stroke.
It had a smoke system on it, too.
And it had smoke. I even now, I would probably buy it.
Yeah. How could you resist?
So I bought it, and we were putting it together. And Bryce and I went out to this. We used to fly to Sodfield on Saturdays, and we headed out there. And in my mind, I see that thing being way in the air, like way high. And I remember saying, I forget, maybe it had a small fuel tank on it or something, but I remember saying we should be careful with the gas or the fuel. And about that time, way up in the sky, it goes, and it was dead stick. But Bryce was on the sticks. I either that or I had the sticks and I handed it to you.
Yeah.
And
I ended up with the sticks.
And I said, surely we have so much airspace.
Yeah.
And you could describe, do you remember how it flew?
So, yeah, I do. And because the Bookers, they have pretty thin wings to them, airfoils, and they'll glide for biplanes. They glide pretty good.
And it had the cross members.
Yeah. This one, the guy had, the fellow that built it had put the lift wires and drag braces on in between the interplane struts. And so we didn't, and this is the first flight on it.
Yeah,
we were still trying to get it dialed in.
I knew we had enough height to not only bring it down to our feet, but probably make a turn or two to slow it down before we did so.
Yeah.
That's what we thought.
If it hadn't had those wires on it, but it did have those wires.
Giant air brakes.
Yeah. And so it started, and especially once it got slower, you really started noticing it with the sink rate on the plane.
And it's all coming in as you're standing there, your brand new airplane. I sold a pistol to buy this airplane, and I called Bryce up before I sold my gun. It was a Para Ordnance P45 that fit my back pocket, and it held a lot of rounds. And I said, Bryce, I got a plane I want to buy. I got a pistol I could sell to my father-in-law who wants it, and it'd be the same price. What do you think? And he said, well, do you want to shoot somebody or fly a nice airplane? And I was like, okay. So I sold him the pistol. He still has it, by the way. I made him a holster for it. But is the airplane is coming down. We both realize we don't have as much
altitude
as or we don't. It's not going to come to us the way we thought. And not only that, it's at this point we both realize that between us and the airplane is not just a fence line, but a fence line that has trees that have grown up down the fence line. And there's only one way through the fence line. And that was a little.
It was the road that we used to drive to the sod field.
Which I guarantee was not created for cars, probably originally created for a horse and wagon.
Right.
And so what Bryce had to do was thread the needle of the Booker at the coming down at whatever rate it was coming down at.
Very rapid rate.
And there was hope that it could go over the trees, but there was also a possibility that it might not. So if it didn't, he had to go through the one lane hole.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't near us. This one lane hole wasn't right there by the wall. It was half a pasture away.
Yeah.
So now you're dealing with depth perception, speed, and slip.
Yeah.
So I remember distinctly everything, but do you have any memories of it?
Yeah. It went around behind the trees, and you said something to the effect of it was kind of a oh shit moment, and I'm like, no, we'll just fly it through the fly it between the trees, and then I think you saw that gap that I was aiming for with it, and you were like, oh okay, and it was going great. It was looking freaking awesome.
If you were looking at it, it looked like it was definitely going through the hole. But what I think we couldn't see is that it was sliding to, I guess, the left.
What was happening is trees. Think of it in terms of like a stone sitting in a stream, and the way water flows around. What happens when water flows past a stone? The air gets real turbulent,
right?
And the air was flowing through those trees. And we were getting low on airspeed and altitude. And so the air got the better of us, and it went to the left side of the trees just at the last minute.
It looked like it was making it, and then it vanished, and then it sounded like we had a car crash had occurred. And I run. Oh my God, my airplane. You can't see it. You have no idea what happened. I run that half pasture, and right on the other side that we couldn't see was a huge stack of pallets.
Yeah. And that's what made that loud ass noise. Bam! Yeah.
Bam!
Yeah.
And the only thing that happened to it, I guess it was slow enough, is that the nose got a little crumpled in, it bent that didn't hurt the motor, but the whole front end was a little askew.
It was because that wasn't one of Goldberg's plane. And if anybody ever built a Goldberg plane, at least the later generations, they had that locking tab construction. And what had happened is it had just broken out the firewall and the little tab. And I mean, literally it's like a jigsaw puzzle, and you could just take and shove the firewall
C8 all back
to the up to the rest of the fuselage, the rest of the airplane.
But at this point,
it was clean.
I had put together an airplane, but not really. And so I was expecting Bryce to fix this airplane, right? Yeah. And Bryce is like, I'm on vacation or this or that. And then I realized Bryce said, well, Jim, you just need to fix it. I was fighting mad. I was like, what are you talking about?
This is the point where Jim had become a pretty good pilot. And, part of RC, one of the beauties of it, at least for me, is tinkering with stuff and fixing it and working on it and making stuff the way you want it. And, one of the things I realized about Jim is even though he might not tell you, he loves working on stuff, and he's got a really sharp mind, and he'll figure stuff out. And up to this point, either I had been doing stuff for him on the airplane, or Charlie, his father-in-law, had been doing it. And it was at this point where it's kind of like, okay, if we keep doing this, we're not going to be doing him any favors. And it was such a clean break. I'm like, dude, 1 hour epoxy and take the motor off the motor mount. It's all easy stuff to see, and just smear it back in there and then hold it in place.
It seemed too simple.
Yeah, it was. So yeah, and at that point, I think we were like we would talk every day. And that was the cool thing, is he'd call me up and he'd study something on Google,
he'd research it because the internet wasn't really that big a deal back then.
Wasn't very
He was
old.
like, yeah, so I was learning about drag today, and 3 forms of drag, and he'd ask me these questions, which is just awesome because no other student I ever had would do that, take the initiative to fix stuff. But at this point, the phone calls stopped for like a week and a half. Maybe it was 2 weeks. I think it was like 2 weeks.
I went back there and I did fix it.
You were pissed.
And it was back on, and it actually flipped the switch for me, not only with RC, but I don't know if you take a look around the room here.
Yeah.
Every guitar on the wall has been modified, like bought and then taken apart and then completely. I'm talking like that 3 pickup guitar right there. It didn't start that way.
Yeah.
That's a Gibson Les Paul. I cut a hole in it.
Yeah, thank you. We need to thank those guys at the sod farm for those pallets.
Yeah, right.
Leaving those damn pallets there.
It started.
Just think if we hadn't crashed that Booker, what had
what
kind of sad shape you'd be in now.
I bought this blue guitar on the wall, and it was here about 3 hours, and then my wife came back downstairs, and it was completely taken. She goes, "Well, is that a record? 3 hours before you took it apart?" So I can trace it all back to the Booker.
Yeah, but so he Jim, you were pretty sore at me for like 2 weeks, and then he calls me up. Is that mine?
Oh, that's me calling you from the past.
Yeah, from the past. Let me hear about breaking his Booker. And he calls me up, and he's like a little kid. He's like, dude, I got the firewall on, and blah, blah, blah. He's telling me all about this. And let me tell you what, that was one of the coolest moments in my life, because it was just, it was what our hobby's all about, is people doing something that you think you can't do, and then you do it. Might not be the most perfect thing, but you're like, oh shit, and it lights the spark in them, and then they just take off running. At this point, he's like,
I started stick building airplanes after that.
Yeah, you had the this is before Truman was here. And Maeve was still, she would have been an infant. I don't think she was up walking around.
She was little enough to be cute enough for people to go, oh.
Yeah, but you set up your building table up in the living room, and you would build the airplanes up there, and
have a kid in a high chair next to me.
Yeah, Ange would do her she did the Stitch and Bitch Club.
Yeah, she was knitting.
Yeah. Yeah, y'all would set up. It was the coolest thing, man. You were turning out an airplane a month.
I had the old wooden chairs that you sat in at school.
Yeah,
I still have 2 of them in the back, and I haven't thrown them away yet. But I set up everything on that, and then after dinner, I'd sit down and start building on top of it with a building board on top of that.
And then, you were building box fuselage, airplanes at that point. And then I think it was shortly after that that you started building the profiles. Right. Somehow you discovered the profile,
and then that was it.
Yeah.
You remember? I think you were there. We went to that swap meet that they have out from Nashville.
Is it down in Columbia?
Yeah. And then I bought a profile for $35,
and that's when they were putting that shitty shelf paper on the thing.
It was.
The R's.
I still have that one too. It's in the garage. But that was my first profile, and then I realized this is the best flying plane I've ever owned, and that was it for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think who was it? Hobby Shack or Global Hobby used to make a bunch of those, and they were putting that shelf paper, which was just the sticky back paper, and we were still flying Slimers at the time, that covering would stay on there for about maybe 10 or 15 flights, and then it'd start working its way up. Sig phaser, and then you started building. I think you built a couple of the Sig phasers.
I never did do the phaser.
Was it?
I always considered those lowly airplanes.
No, all the old guys at the field had those.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And they would be like, Jim, what should I buy? And I'd tell them the best profile made at the moment, like a Mojo or a Chinyak.
Yeah.
And then they would show up. I got me a Sig phaser. I'd be like, man, this is not.
Yeah.
A 3D. This is
no.
But Jason, the other day I said I need an airplane I enjoy, and I thought that I'd grown out of being a profile guy.
Phaser?
Yeah, I'm getting a stick phaser. But really, I think that what I need to do is get a profile back out. I think I want a smaller one. The big one, of course, flies the best. But I'm once again want something that's easy to transport and doesn't cost $8,000 in batteries.
Yep.
It's like 2 4S's, and they're sticks of dynamite, these things.
Yeah.
But I'm looking for something I want to fly, not in FPV. Don't get me wrong. FPV is still my favorite, but I think that I need to stretch my legs a little bit and just have an airplane like the Booker. Although I don't want the Booker because that thing was big and a lot of work.
It's a pain in the butt to transport.
But Jason, I got to think Horizon makes something that's as awesome as the Booker that is a 3S, 4S airplane that I can fly around. I have a lot of fun and have a lot of reaction to. Like maybe you're the what you called your Texan. What was that? An AT6?
Oh, that was the T6, but it's
T6.
a UMX. That's an ultra micro.
Oh, that's not what I'm talking about.
But they've got bigger ones.
But Aaron Grande's doing a 12-foot, his first covering job on a 12-foot Telemaster.
Wow.
Holy smokes. Did you get a package deal on the covering for that thing, Aaron?
Hey, did you hear about the company that bought Hobby Lobby? Hobby Express?
No.
Yes. So they sold themselves on the internet.
Yeah.
And it's a local company that purchased it, and they have the rights to the Telemaster.
Really?
So the Telemaster's still out there. And check this crazy stuff out.
Carolina custom kit.
Carolina, yeah.
Carolina, yeah.
I had a guy in here the other day buying a piece off of me, and he said, yeah, I got one of them Telemasters. And I said, well, what you got? And he said, I have the original candy dropper that they took to all the shows. And I'm like, the candy dropper?
Oh.
That's kind of amazing. That's like owning a part of the building.
Yeah. Jason, I don't know, or Jim, you might know. It seems to me the senior Telemaster was actually designed. I think they used to use it to tether cables across when they were running electricity. They would fly it across mountains over in the European Alps. They would fly the tether.
The tether, not the cable
not
itself.
The cable itself, but just hook it up to a long ass piece of fishing line or whatever, and then tie that to the cable, and that's the original reason for what we call the senior Telemaster.
And i.e. the name Tele, I think.
Yeah.
Telecommunication, maybe. That's a theory.
Yeah. It seems to me I remember reading something in the the marketing literature.
I always heard the story, and I think I researched it, but this is not Telemaster related, but I had a neighbor doing a shortwave radio antenna.
Yeah.
And he wanted a guy wire put over a big tree. So I took my a big multi-rotor.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, I put a piece of twine on it because I realized anything else would not work.
Yeah.
It would work for a minute, and then it'd be like, I'm not in this business. And so I used the twine to go over the pine tree, and then we tied that on his cable, and then we pulled it through.
Okay.
So I actually telemastered.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well,
speaking of Hobby Lobby, did you ever hear how Jim Martin started that business? Do you know how he did it, Jason?
I'm not sure. Yeah. I may have heard it.
I have heard it, but I'll let you tell the story.
It was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Jim Martin had it was old Ben Franklin's 5 and Dime store up in.
It was across from that college, I think. There's a pizza place over there right now. I see the little area in my head where its original
It was up in Melrose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
not by college, right? By where the bowling alley used to be.
Right, exactly. And he used to, Jim started flying RC, I think back in the 60s. And he got fascinated with it. And Jim was Mr. Martin was a really shrewd businessman. He got started flying RCs as a hobby. And then he realized that there was a potential for just to have a hobby shop, because I think there was not one there in Nashville, even though we have one of the oldest flying sites.
1922.
In town, in the States. It's an actual historic monument, or what is it, marker or whatever. Anyways, Mr. Martin started in the back of his 5 and Dime shop, selling RC stuff in the evening, and he had a pretty good business. And then back in the 70s, when the catalog business got big, he was one of the first RC operations besides Tower Hobbies, which is turned into Hobbyco, which now is Horizon.
I'll also say Hobby Lobby, the craft store, and Hobby Lobby, the RC store, started the exact same year, 1968.
Did they really? Okay.
And they both named their stores the same thing accidentally at the same time. And so they both agreed to reciprocate if people called for Hobby Lobby, the wrong store, which Jason can tell you, we redirected ladies to the craft store.
It's hilarious. It's the same thing. Yeah, about when you were working at the city counter, and part of
the cool thing about the business was at one point, I think it was back in the 80s, Mr. Martin just wanted a mail order house, but he realized that, people traveling, because we're on Interstate 65, a lot of people heading north and south would be driving past.
Can I stop by?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, people have been ordering from him for years. So he opened what we call the city counter.
Which was very small.
Yeah, very, very small, especially considering how big the operation was. But about once every hour or two, a woman would come in the showroom in the hobby shop, and she'd be like looking around. They always had this look on their face. And before they could say anything, we're like, you need to get back on the interstate, go 12 miles down. It's going to be on the right.
3 to 4 times a day and multiple phone calls.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I'll tell you a story that you may not know. There used to be a big shotgun pattern dent on the backside of the main wall. And I would see that and think, what the hell? It's from the inside. The shotgun was shot from not the outside like you. Okay, that I get. So I asked Mr. Martin. I said, Mr. Martin, I have to ask you. And Mr. Martin could be as friendly as anybody, or he might not be. So you're taking a risk. But I said, can I ask you a question? Sure, Jim. In a very friendly, very happy. And I said, why is there a shotgun blast on the inside of the building? And he said, well, we had a bird in the shop and it was driving everyone crazy. And on a Friday afternoon, I said to Steve, could you take care of that? And I guess I wasn't specific. And when I came back on Monday, the bird was gone, but evidently he'd been in here with the 12 gauge shotgun shooting at it. And that's where he shot at it when it happened to be on the wall.
Oh,
Yes.
Holy crap.
And what you're saying about Mr. Martin, he could be a real rascal at times. And I will say this as, a 48-year-old man that has worked with a number of different people. I respect looking back on it.
Yeah.
I respect the living daylights out of him, because even though he could be a jerk at times, he always financially took care of everybody. There was never, a time when, we can't pay you or
Right.
yeah, we're going to do something stupid because we have mismanaged our money or something like that. He was always on top of the ball. He was a great businessman.
And even his proclivities that might not be understandable to a 20-year-old. I was 26 or 7 or 8. Now as a 50-year-old, I totally understand where he was coming from. I'll tell you a story. I won't tell some of the stories, but he used to always go to Toledo. And one year he was at a booth in Toledo, and and back then we had exclusives on everything: the Axie motors, the Jetty speed controller, the lithium polymers. It was ours, and we made a great markup, and that's how we did so well. But there was a booth, and it was pointed out that they were carrying airplanes, selling airplanes that were our exclusives.
Yeah.
So Jim Martin walked over to the booth, and I won't name whose booth it was, but you might know who it was. While the guy was talking to all the people at Toledo, as it happens, he opened each one of the boxes of the kits that he had the exclusive on, and he broke the main spar between his fingers, and then would shut the box and open the next box and break the main spar. And he broke the main spar on every model that he had on display. And then he quietly went back to the Hobby Lobby booth. Hello, Avon calling.
Hello.
Woo. Well, we have certainly taken up a lot of Bryce time.
Team America. Yeah, you're exactly right. Bob Ruther, and he was an old friend of mine. I don't know when. I think they started their hobby shops back about the same time. And to get Ruther talking about Jim Martin, they didn't hold high opinions of each other,
Right.
and they were just talk about two grumpy old men. It was hilarious to get them talking, because they were definitely not PC.
This doesn't seem like anything now, but to me at the time it seemed amazing. When Highway 65 was being built, he said that he and some friends got in a convertible, and they got Telemaster, and then they got rolling in the convertible and got the Telemaster in the air, and then they drove down it was open. I'm telling a lie, because there's an end to the story which makes it open. They're flying down the highway in a convertible, flying the airplane next to the car at 60 miles an hour, at which point they pass a Greyhound bus. So it's a convertible, an airplane, and a Greyhound. And he said when that airplane pulled up next to the driver's window, he said that guy about drove off the road. He thought it was, he thought it was a real airplane. So very classic. This reminds me of a story of, you don't know what it is, but when you do, you will. Who am I thinking of? Bubba Spivey.
David. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that says enough right there.
Bubba Spivey. Yeah. Jason looks bored. Jason, you're like, why did you even call me for this podcast?
No, it's good. I'm just thinking about all the packing I go do right now.
Oh, well, we'll wrap this up in just 1 second. Bubba Spivey, Chris Henson worked for Bubba Spivey. You don't know this story. And so
did you mention who Bubba Spivey?
Bubba Spivey. Now what was his original company?
Lanier.
Yeah, that's right.
His dad started Lanier, and then Bubba was the next generation of it, I think.
I'm going to tell a couple of things I would not normally tell on a podcast. If you're live, you might get lucky here. So this relates to Chris Henson of Extreme Flight used to work for Bubba. And he said, just a short explanation, he would say, if you called and Chris answered and said, I need to talk to the owner, Chris said he would beg you that you didn't really want to talk to the owner, that you should talk to Chris. And he said occasionally people would demand, I want to talk to the owner. And Chris would go, okay. And then
get a piece of Bubba.
That I can't say on this podcast. And so every Friday, Chris said that Bubba would start drinking his beer. Once again, hopefully this is okay for the podcast. I mean, it is legal in many states now. Yeah, and then he would start smoking his hippie hay. So he'd have a 6-pack of beer and some hippie hay under his belt. And then he would say, Chris, load up the truck. And so what that meant is Chris would put a couple of airplanes and transmitters in the truck, and then they would go out to wherever they flew. And then Chris's job was to fly the Lanier plane in circles as fast as he could. And then Bubba had a 12 gauge. And then Bubba's job was to try to shoot them out of the sky until they couldn't fly them. That's how the hobby used to be. Live viewers, I would love for your input here. Are you kidding me? This can't be true. I don't know.
It's a wonder that Chris is still alive, that he didn't get caught in the crossfire.
Oh,
Get between Bubba and the airplane.
Just from being with Bubba.
Oh my gosh.
You know what? I'm going to wrap the podcast up. I'm sure there's more stories to be told, but we've told many. On a fateful night, the very first night I ever got to have a conversation with Bubba, and this is a long story. I'm not going to do the whole story, but I'll tell you what Bubba told me, and it served me through all the years. Jason Cole knows it because he's heard me say it so many times. Bubba said to me probably 30 times because there was a lot of beer involved. And then after that, the police. But he said, that's for real. He said, surprise. Billy Hale, you don't know what it is, but when you do, you will. And I thought this guy's crazy, but really that has proved to be totally true throughout my life. Maybe it's just so simplistic.
Wait.
You don't know what it is, but when you do, you will. And then he would follow that up by going, and I'm not going to tell you. I'm not telling you. He'd go on and on about what he's not going to tell me. I would be like, but what is it? And then he'd go, well, you don't know, but when you do, you will. I don't know that I know what he's talking about to this day. We'll never find out.
But you know what?
What I do, I will. But Jason and I might be at Joan Hall.
It's all about great people find the answer in the bottom of the trash can.
The shit canner.
The shit can.
Sometimes though things will happen, and I'll look at Jason and I'm like, you don't know what it is, but when you do, when we both understand at this moment, we do get it. Nice stingers.
Nice.
Hey, I want to thank first of all our podcast sponsor, Hobby King at hobbyking.com, so much over the years. Just thank you. Go check them out. And then I want to thank all our live viewers who come on. You know, I was late today because I went to lunch with Bryce, and I said, Jason was like, it's 2. Where the heck are you? And I looked at my watch and I said, I'll be back in 15. And I'm glad that we did it. I'm glad I had Bryce on. Great stories. This is totally going to be a podcast. So this will be an audio podcast. What's today? It'll happen next week. I'll put it up, and then it's cool because when I do a podcast, it goes out to iTunes, and then wing, thousands of people download it.
Yeah.
So everyone, the people, we have a few people on live, but then thousands of people will hear this next week. Also, I want to thank RCGroups and everyone that logs on every day. Jason, let me see if I can get this in front of me. I want to tell you some facts that I haven't checked on them in a while. I'm going to go to my sent file because I just sent this to somebody. Here we go. In case you're wondering, I saw a post on Flying Giants the other day, and it said, things seem to have slowed down. I went and looked to see how many people are getting on just Flying Giants. Usually around 4,000 a day, which, by the way, is as high as it ever was in its heyday. But I saw a thing like this, but I looked out the last 4 weeks. I saw a day where there were almost 7,000 people on Flying Giants in a day, which is much higher than usual and certainly higher than the old days. Hard to believe, I understand, but that is a Google analytic. So then I was like, well, what's RCGroups doing? RCGroups is running about any moment on the site. There's 16,000 people, which you may think, I don't know what to make of that. Well, if you go look at any other forum, there's 4,000 people on there, so that's pretty amazing. And then I was like, okay, I get that there's a certain amount of people on at a certain time, but how many people are coming to the site today? From 63,000 on a Sunday because everybody's at church to 77,000 on like a Monday or Tuesday. 77,000 pilots come into the site. It's unbelievable. 1.2 million unique users a month. So if you're wondering, I'm not selling anyone here. I'm just saying how many people are on the site. It's kind of
a lot of eyeballs.
Yeah. So, and the end of that story is thanks to everyone that make up those numbers, because you are the hobby. We're the hobby. The site's the hobby. And then everything that you radiate, propagate, and become an ambassador for the hobby by being a nice pilot and somebody who spreads the word. Bryce Custer here started my whole career in motion. Without Bryce, I might work at the hardware store. I don't know. Right? I certainly wouldn't have braids.
Yeah.
It's all because of you and the damn biplane.
Yep.
All right.
Hey, I'll break your biplane for you. If your life's in a shithole right now and you need some motivation, give me your biplane. I'll break it for you. Maybe I can work some magic for you.
Break your biplane, change your life.
I can put Tony Robbins out of business.
You can fly it in the shit can.
Yeah, exactly. I'll change your life with the trash can.
So everyone keep an eye out next week for Jason. He will be at the event, but he'll also be creating news on RCGroups. You can go check it out. Once again, hunting for a sponsor. Had one, lost one, want one. And for this Nats coverage. And that is all. Thanks, everyone. We will see you on the internet. I'm Jim T. Graham, your host. Bryce Custer joining us. Who knew? And the lovely Jason Cole. And thank God you changed that shirt. And as Matt Gunn would say, simmer down now. All right. We're out in 3, 2, 1. Bingo, bango. No.
Jason, you still there?
I think we're still live.
We're still live.
We're still live. Wait, we're stopping?
Well, it's like a horse.